Hi, this is Little Egypt again, and with me now is JJ Dillon, best known as the manager of the Four Horsemen. But what an incredible career he's had, and this is what we're going to be chatting about. And thank you so much for sitting with us for just a few minutes. It's more of a quiet atmosphere. There's not a lot of people listening and watching, so I really appreciate it. Let's first start off with your thoughts on the Cauliflower Alley Club. You are one of the biggest supporter here. What is it that keeps you coming back year after year?
Well, I've been called the unofficial goodwill supporter for the Cauliflower Alley, and I had heard about it. I'd had one of the people that was on the board, who since passed away, was in his 90s, that told me that, boy, you really need to come here. And it seemed like every year either it had just passed, or it was coming up so close that I had commitments for other things that I couldn't come. And then finally one year, he got to me early enough. We went to a reunion, which was Wrestlers Only Mobile, and it was early enough that I could circle the date in the calendar, and I said, this year I'm coming. And that was 10 years ago. Oh. And didn't know what to expect. I was told it was different, that it was here for a couple days, but that the fans were very aware of when you needed a little private time, if you were in private conversations, very respectful, and yet they enjoyed the fact that they had accessibility to you for a couple of days. And when I got here, I found that to be the case. And the first year was down in Old Town, and I didn't know what to expect. I kind of was taking it all in, and really what impact that year was when I first started watching as a kid. I was born and raised in New Jersey. And
what part of Jersey?
Trenton.
Ah,
yeah.
I'm a Jersey girl.
So we used to get Philadelphia and New York TV stations, and wrestling was on every Thursday night. And during that period of time, it was Rocca and Chief Big Heart and Haystacks, Calhoun and Kowalski and the Sheik. But then Buddy Rogers came in, and one of the people associated with him was Bob Orton Sr. So I had seen Bob Orton Sr. in the late 50s, and then I started my career and traveled mostly initially through the South, though I ended up going all over the world, and I would hear about Bob Orton but never ran into him. And in 1978, I went back to Amarillo. Get there, Bob Orton Sr. is working the territory with his family, so I got to meet his wife, got to meet Rhonda, his daughter. Art Nelson, who was very kind to me when I broke into the business, was there, and it was kind of the swan song for the two of them. They retired from there and went to Vegas and had jobs in security. So I made trips with Bob Orton, and he was such a entertaining, funny, interesting guy. So now you have to see, here's 58 to 78 since I've seen him, first as a fan, now I'm sharing the dressing room with him. Now, fast forward to 10 years ago, I come to Cauliflower Alley, and I'm kind of looking around, and a lot of times I will see somebody and say, I know that face, but I can't put a name to it. And it's embarrassing when you recognize somebody and can't think of their name. And I remember saying to somebody, without being obvious, he was in a wheelchair on the other side of the room. I said, I know who that is. I can't. They said, that's Bob Orton Sr. Oh.
Wow. Wow.
So I rushed across the room, and Bob, oh, God, it's so good to see you. And there was Rhonda, and her eyes were all lit up. And so they said, we're living here now. We have an apartment with a pool. Why don't you come by tomorrow and hang at the pool with us? And it was my first year there, and I really wanted to soak in what Cauliflower Alley was all about. So I said, I'll take a rain check maybe next time. Bob Orton passed away 2 months later. So I look at Cauliflower Alley from a whole different personal perspective, that if I had not come, I wouldn't have seen him. And it would have been a moment in life I would have missed out on. So I've been back every year for the last 10 years.
And I can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming, because not only do we need people like you to show up, you're a draw, and we need our draws, but also we also need the stories, like what you just shared, because that is our legacy. That's like, and I know you have a book. You have an autobiography.
Yeah.
And when did that come out?
10 years ago, 2005.
Okay. We were talking earlier about how easy it was for you to kind of chronologically go through your history as a wrestler, and I was blown away by when you started. Can we talk a little bit about what got you into wrestling?
Well, I was a fan. Started as a fan, which a lot of guys in this business don't admit that they started as a fan, because once you get your foot in the door, you're so thrilled to be there, and in some ways you're embarrassed to say, well, I was really a fan on the outside, for fear that all of a sudden you're going to be, and which doesn't happen. But so you just get wrapped up in your career and what you're doing and try to advance, but you don't reflect so much on how you got there. And so my dream was to be a wrestler, and some of the old timers gave me some good advice. A guy named George Bolus, the original Zebra Kid, I asked him one day, he said, give me some advice, because they didn't have the wrestling schools, and it's very hard to break into the business. Second generation guys had it a little bit easier, or if you lived somewhere where guys lived and trained, you might have a chance. And he gave me some good advice, which I pass along to this day when young people ask me for advice. And there was two things he told me. He said, number one, get your education first. He said, because the wrestling business can be very tough, very fragile. There's no guarantees. There's the risk of injury. There's a risk that you don't make it. And if you go to college and get your degree, you can stick that in your back pocket, and it'll always be there if things don't work out for you to fall back on. So that was great advice. And then he said, go and learn the fundamentals of amateur wrestling. And he said, believe it or not, though professional wrestling is perceived differently, the fundamentals of amateur wrestling will make you a better professional. And he was absolutely right about that. So I got married right out of college, and immediately had started a family, and I thought, boy, this great plan I had to get into the business is now not following the path that I thought it was going to. And so I ended up a fluke attempt. One night they needed a referee, and I had never refereed, but I had been a fan for so long, and it's amazing what you can learn just watching. And so I refereed in a studio wrestling event in Philadelphia for the whole hour, and instinctively did a good job because I was a fan, and all the other referees it was a political thing. They were commission referees and really not fans and didn't care about the business. So the wrestlers embraced me because they knew that I cared about the business. Mm-hmm. And if there were, matches where there was tremendous heat, and the other referees, I don't feel good, and I would say, I don't care. And they respected me for going out there in sold-out arenas where some of the cities up there, it got pretty intense with the heat, and they protected me. I never got hurt. And I learned more being the third person in the ring. It was the era Bruno Sammartino as the world champion, and so when he faced Killer Kowalski and Georgie Animal Steel and Baron Cicluna and Gorilla Monsoon, and the list goes on, I was right there in the ring, seeing what they did, when they did it, how the fans reacted, and that was basically the foundation of my understanding of the business. Then when I finally broke in out of 8 years later, when the Sheik came and just casual conversation in the dressing room, I said, I really wanted to be a wrestler. I said, well, I promote Detroit, come on out. And he said, put the tights on and we'll see what you could do. And that's how I got my foot in the door. And then I had to learn the mechanics of actual wrestling.
Right.
I knew amateur. I had played judo in high school, so I knew how to protect myself falling. And again, some guys helped me. One of the first guys I wrestled was a guy named Pedro Godoy, who was a wonderful, wonderful human being. And the first night I was in the ring, he called for a slam, and I had never slammed anybody before. I picked him up, and
Right.
it was such a new experience that I basically lost him and almost dropped him on his head. And
Oh,
I remember
dear.
like it was yesterday, thinking he's going to get back to the dressing room and he's going to want to kill me. Got back to the dressing room, calls me over, and I thought, okay, if I take a whooping, it's because I deserve it. And
Right.
instead, he said, and went through the mechanics. He said, go deep, keep your body close to mine. And he said, it's so easy to get up here, and then you have my center of balance. And then he said, from that point, you just go like this, and gravity takes over. And I was in shock that he took what could have been an ugly moment and turned it into a learning experience. Wrestled him the next night. What's the first thing in the move, the match that he calls? Slam me.
Right.
Went perfect. So that was a beginning of a lot of people helping me along the way. So as a referee, it made me a better, as a fan, it made me a better referee, and as a referee, it made me a better wrestler. And then I wrestled full time for the first 5 years. People see the leader of the Four Horsemen as the pinnacle of my career, which it was, but it was just a snapshot of my career. I had 3,200 professional matches. And so when I did manage, that experience of a fan, referee, wrestler, enabled me to be a better manager. And it ended up, when it was all said and done, I was active for 20 years. Because I started late, when I broke in Charlotte, I was 28, almost 29 years old. I wasn't a kid. And had a good attitude, so the old timers recognized that I kept my mouth shut, that I was there to learn, didn't question or make suggestions. I did what I was told to do, and then if you do that, people want to help you. And so that was a factor. And then the other thing in this crazy business is you have to have a love for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are ups and downs. It's not easy, and you have to be willing to persevere. Then you do need help from others, and I got all of that. I had the passion, I had the work ethic, I had people help me. This one here is the tough one, and it's sheer luck. The luck of being the right place at the right time, because a lot of guys are great, all these other things, and just finish their career and just never are that right place, the right time. And I was fortunate that way too. The Horseman was a thing that wasn't a creative idea that came to fruition. It was something that just happened that the fans took and ran with, and it was a great time. And because I had been involved in all the territories that I went to, the great minds in wrestling, Dory Funk and Terry Funk, and being around Eddie Graham and Bob Geigel and Fritz von Erich and Jerry Lawler, and every place that I went, I soaked up different philosophies of the business, and also being around wrestlers so much. When I was given the opportunity to finally hang it up, because I couldn't face Paul Ellering in special attraction matches for the rest of my life. So when the opportunity came, I went to work for what was then the WWE with Vince McMahon, and I was there for 8 years. And I think I was more effective on the executive level, because a lot of times in that position with talent relations, you're usually the bearer of bad news. And because I had been on the other side, I could always know that I walked a mile in their shoes. And that's when contracts came into existence, and there were 90-day outs. And somebody would say, we're going to notify them that we're not going to renew their contract.
Right.
And a lawyer used to write a very cold legalese letter, put it in a FedEx envelope, and mail it to the guy's home. And guys would get airline tickets and things that way. And if they're away at the gym and the envelope comes away, I say, it's probably his tickets. And if she opened it, and here's this letter. So when I got there, I said, from this point forward, no letter goes out of that nature till I've made a personal phone call. And it's because it doesn't mean that the bad news was any better. but I had walked a mile in his shoes, and I knew that the courtesy of a phone call saying, this is the toughest part of my job, and the decision's been made, and I'm got to be the one to convey the message, and I just want to tell you in advance so that you can think about it, how you're going to talk to your wife and family, what plans you may think, and guys appreciated that courtesy. And so that enabled me to have a successful career on the executive side after I retired. And then all of a sudden, 40-some years passed by, my career is over, I reflect back, and now I'm wearing 2 Hall of Fame rings, and in my wildest dreams from where I started as a kid, there was the Hall of Fame in those days was Cooperstown in baseball.
Right.
And so to proudly have 2 rings to me is maybe a validation that through all of that I must have done something right.
I would think. When you were on the executive side over there at the WWE, clearly it was hard for you to make that call. How many times do you think you made it?
Oh, God. Quite often.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I also got involved in the planning of travel and that kind of thing, and where before somebody would just make decisions arbitrarily and issue tickets, because I'd been a talent on the road, I was aware of how much easier it would have been to go to this point, rent a car and do these things. And, and I would see in advance where there might be a problem with that, and there'd be time enough for me to get with talent booking and say, you know, if you, instead of doing this town, and this town, if you could find another town over here, that would make it easier on the talent. It would be more cost effective. So again, it's that experience that I gained of being on the road all the time as a talent to enable decisions to be made that were in the best interest of the talents and really for the promotion as well.
So here you are, and you have the same career that so many other wrestlers have had when they're on the road and they're away from their families. Tell us a little bit about your family. Do you have children?
Yes.
Tell me about how many you got and their ages.
Wrestling is not the easiest life to have a traditional lifestyle in terms of a family. It takes a special woman. There's a lot of things on the road, distractions, temptations. Some guys handle it in stride. Some guys, it consumes them.
Right.
You know, we hear the bad stories, and I'm kind of fall somewhere in between. I was married 3 times, divorced 3 times. Had a child with me for this trip who was young enough that when I was still on the road, traveled to Kansas City and to Dallas and to Tampa and to Charlotte and made road trips with me. And so she got a little bit of the taste of what it's like being on the road. And my second wife already had children and thought I would never have any more. And then my third wife was younger than I was, wanted children. And so I had twins when I was 50, and then I had another one 2 years later. So I have 4 children. My first daughter has 4 daughters of her own, and which makes me a grandfather. And about a year ago, her youngest one had a baby, so I'm a great grandfather by a year. And then the twins are seniors in college. It's a boy and a girl. The boy has special needs. We almost lost him at birth, and he's in a power wheelchair, but he's going to take a 5th year where his twin sister's going to graduate in a couple weeks with a degree in biomedical engineering. Smart girl, very athletic, loves music, traveled with Drum Corps International, traveled the world. She's been to China, been to Europe, took a trip to Australia for winter studies. So that's part of the education of life too. And he is, he's going to take a 5th year, but he's going to graduate too. And he's a smart kid. And he cognitively he's there. He was here at Cauliflower Alley with me last year.
I remember that,
Yeah.
and oh my God, what a handsome, handsome young man. And I have a great picture of all of us, but I didn't want to post it, and it's personal. But what I thought when I saw him, I meant to just like ask you, does he enjoy wrestling? Is he a fan?
He loves wrestling and he loves amateur wrestling. And
Really?
I always worry because he's got a weakness with his legs and on his right side. And my fear is that he would get hurt. And his mother, I would say, oh wow. And she said, I think he's like a lot of kids. He wants to do what his father did, and so I respect him for that. And he's, there are people who have the responsibility of someone with a special needs some people I think consider it maybe a burden, and I am the other way. I look at it as a gift.
Yeah, it is a great gift. I believe you, especially, your son, and he radiates this amazing unconditional love all the time.
He's 22 years old, and never one time in 22 years we all have down moments in life. If I ever had him say, why did this happen to me? Why can't I just do what everything else does? Where never, not one time. And instead of feeling down because of the little things that we do every day that we take for granted, if it's something because of his physical limitations that he can't do, instead of complaining about it, he thinks of how can I modify, or with the abilities that I do have, be able to accomplish that. And geez, I admire that.
Yeah, yeah. I want to thank you so much for opening up your heart the way you did. I love you guys. I love that you are happy to share, because you understand that it's important for our industry to do so. And I want to also just let you know, and I feel like I speak on behalf of everybody, how much we all appreciate that. Because we're writing our history, and you're such a big part of it. And you paid such a big price for where you're at. And, you've gone through so much, and it's in your biography. But for us to have just a little bit of a peek at what it's like to be J.J. Dillon, it's incredible.
I have a website. It's easy to remember,
Okay.
www.jjdillon.com. And a lot of personal pictures there of my family.
Oh, good.
From the weekend when I was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in Miami. All four of my children were brought in.
Great.
So it was a family affair. Inducted the following year in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame up in Amsterdam, New York. And again, 3 of my 4 children were there to share that moment. So, I'm proud of what I accomplished. I never got consumed with the fact that the success that I've enjoyed in the business is because there's, that I'm really the special person. I think to be successful in anything, a small part of it is ego. It's kind of what the whole person is all about. Some people have a huge ego that overwhelms them. I always kept my ego, I think, in check and managed it and never, I enjoy coming. I enjoy having the fans come up and have memories that stick in their mind and to thank me for whatever relief I might have given them, whether it was a moment or a period of time to let them escape from their problems in life. And I think, hey, as I look back, that's a positive thing that I did in my life. And my autobiography, Wrestlers Are Like Seagulls, if you go to my website, it was published in 2005. The first printing was hardbound issues, never sold in stores. You had to get it through the website, and it sold out this last year. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I would bring copies to Cauliflower Alley or Pro Wrestling
Yeah.
Hall of Fame, and sign copy. I started the first year to sign them as a way of saying thank you for the people that had to work to find it.
Yeah.
And then I just kept up doing it because really it was
Right.
a way of saying thank you, and
Yeah.
which is part of why I come to Cauliflower Alley, because it does give us that interaction that when we were on the road during the heyday of our career, we were insulated from the fans.
Yeah.
Parked behind the building, came in the back door, did our thing, and unless we had a chance meeting at a convenience store on the way out of town, we never had any personal contact with the fans. So now, Cauliflower Alley, Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, some of these fan fests, the fans come, and I'm amazed sometimes that, like 25 years after the Horsemen, that people come with and share these memories of things, some of which I'm not saying that I've forgotten, but just listening to them remember in detail things that happened, and they have memorabilia that they want signed or whatever, but it's also a chance for me to say thank you to them.
Wow, that's beautiful. That is really beautiful. You're a beautiful man. Oh my God, how lucky am I to be sitting here right now with J.J. Dillon, an incredible human being. If you're not coming to the Cauliflower Alley Club, you are missing an incredible experience. These are moments that we can't make up. These are opportunities to get close to people that you've only idolized from a distance. Check out caulifloweralleyclub.org and get to know us a little bit better. This is Angelina with AfterBuzz TV. Thank you so much, and thank you, JJ.
And thank
Absolutely
you to the
love
fans.
you. Thank you always to
Thank
the
you.
fan. Love you. Thank you.